Mhm. Well, welcome. I want to welcome Dan and Christy Kihm to this is being shot as a podcast. So, the First Church podcast. Dan and Christy Kihm are missionaries through global strategy that our church helps support. We are not their sole supporters, and so we just help support. And I'll just say on the front end, as I get to meet with Dan and Christy, if you would like to give to them and support their ministry, we encourage you to do that. In our church, you can do that by giving to Faith Promise, but you can also go directly to their page through Global Strategy on jesusisaSubject.org. And so I encourage you to look them up there. I'll try to put the link on this podcast or on the YouTube page or in the blog that will also associate with this for anybody who wants to do that. So I'm going to have Dan and Christy introduce themselves. And why don't you tell us where you are currently located and about your family, and then we'll talk a little bit about what you do.
Okay, great. You go first.
Go ahead.
All right. So yeah, we're Daniel and Christy Kihm, and we have one daughter, Sophie. She's 8 years old, and we live in Budapest, Hungary, serving as global strategy missionaries with the Three Worlds team, serving the region of Europe and the Middle East.
When we visited you guys in 2017, we were located in the Netherlands. And then this last August, so a little bit over a year ago, we moved to Budapest, Hungary. So we've been here now for, what is it?
14 months, maybe?
I think.
14 and a half or so.
Yeah. And we serve the church here in Hungary. There are three, I think we're counting 4 churches now in the vicinity of Budapest, but we also have several regional roles, and so we work with different churches in the region, and that's kind of how the Three Worlds team operates. Is a missionary family is located in one place and works specifically there, but then also we cover the whole region, which includes I think 16 different countries right now have a Church of God presence in them.
Wow. So tell me a little bit, just real quick, about your daughter. You have a daughter. She's a child, and she's a child of missionaries, and so she is a missionary as well. How's that work? How's she doing?
She's with an MK, so like PK's pastor's kid. She's an MK. She's also a TCK, third culture kid, and that means that she has lived or grown up in a country that her parents did not grow up in. So Dan and I grew up in America, but she has spent the vast majority of her life in the Netherlands. So she was how old when we moved over there?
She was 15 months old when we moved from Indiana to Holland, and then we moved, of course, to Hungary. And so she's visited America, and we had a 7-month home assignment.
That was when we last saw you guys when we came to visit. It was in 2017, right?
3 years ago, I guess.
Yeah.
But other than those 7 months and a few visits here and there, she's lived in Europe ever since she was 15 months old. So she's in 3rd grade, and right now she goes to an English-speaking school here in Hungary. In Holland, she went to a Dutch school, and so she spoke Dutch. Everything was in Dutch, but here it's an English-speaking school. So that's been a good change, and that's been nice for her, that she feels more relaxed, I think, to talk in what is her mother tongue.
She also has students in her class that are like her, like a TCK, and so it's nice that she can kind of relate to wanting to see grandma and grandpa, but it literally being across an ocean and that kind of thing. So it's been really good.
Yeah. So what do you guys do? I mean, what are your goals? Like, what do you do as missionaries that live in Budapest, but you're working with a team of people around and across Europe?
Yeah. So we are the coordinators of a network called Europe X, which is a network of Church of God pastors and leaders throughout the region of Europe and the Middle East who are focused on or actively planning to do church planting or church multiplication. So more of the outside of the box ministries and just newer things. And so we're coordinators of this network, and 3 of the churches who are represented in EuropeX are based here in Budapest. And so locally, we work with those 3 churches, specifically one of them, the church in Rakospalota. And We have other regional roles as well. Christy and Audrey Langford are in charge of coordinating 3WLN, the Three Worlds Leadership Network, which is an event that happens every 18 months, bringing together young leaders from the region into one place for a conference. And I work with the church in Rome and a ministry in Plovdiv, Bulgaria, as kind of the chair of their like governance board, if you will. And so
those are specific tasks and roles that we have. And then kind of the broad goal of what we do and what the Three Worlds team does is to support empowered and accountable young leaders. So I think we talked about this when we came to visit in 2017, that there's kind of missing generations in the church in Europe, especially people under the age of 45. In almost every country that the Church of God is in, there's hardly anybody in that demographic. And so finding people that are in that demographic that say, I want to be involved in ministry and to serve, and supporting and helping them to not burn out, to weather some of the storms of life, the work-life ministry balance, so that this next generation we'll still have a church here in Europe and the Middle East. So it's kind of that, I guess sometimes we say we're like bridge builders between the church in North America and the church here in Europe and the Middle East. We try to be connectors intergenerationally as well, and then connecting the different churches in the region to each other and helping that kind of be hopefully like a grassroots sustainable connection system. So EuropeX does that through the Three Worlds Leadership Network is a connector. So in a way we get to be kind of cheerleaders and encouragers and a support system for those that are doing ministry, the nationals that are doing ministry here in Europe and the Middle East.
Practically, think about specific tasks. Practically, we do ministry in an international setting. So sermons and Bible studies and hosting groups from elsewhere in the region or from the USA.
Pastoral care, counseling, mentoring.
Lots of individual meetings, whether that's counseling focused or just planning together for some ministry in their local church or whatever. So I don't know.
Kind of a mixed bag.
Yeah, duties as assigned.
Yes.
Whatever comes up. Yeah. You said the entire Western Church has is struggling kind of reaching a younger generation or younger people, and it seems to be amplified in Europe, obviously. Why do you think that is there?
Yeah, that's a great loaded question.
Yeah. Well, I'll just throw out a couple ideas and then jump in.
Yeah.
One is just maybe the length of time. So, the church has not existed in America.
America hasn't existed.
The church has only existed in America for what, like 200 or 350 or 400 years or whatever it is that America and the colonies and all that. At that point, the Protestant church had existed in Europe for 100 years or more, and the church had existed for a couple thousand years. And so it's just people here, generally speaking, people here in Europe, they've always known about the church and
at least culturally.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so I think sometimes I don't know, it depends. I'm trying to imagine what it's like, the climate in Northeast Ohio, but the spiritual climate, I mean.
Okay. So I can tell you it's cold.
In America, oftentimes, folks are familiar with the church as well, but every now and then you come across families who've just never been churched. Well, here, for the most part, every family at some point in the past couple generations has been a part of this church, that church, or been affected by this church, that church.
But oftentimes not in a positive way. So if someone in your community were to say, we're going to go to youth groups, and no one really knew what that was, it still may be viewed as a good thing. But here, after all that time to witness the good and the light and the dark side of the church, things like the Crusades and different scandals in the church, the extreme wealth of the church versus the poverty of the common man, all those things historically have maybe, for the average European, put the church and Christianity in a bad light. And so a lot of people just aren't interested in that because they're like, why would I go there when I can go to my gym and they feel like family and I don't have to have all the shaming and the baggage. And so, so a lot of people, they just cast off church and they're like, there's nothing there for me that I can't get somewhere else.
Also, here in Hungary, in Central or Eastern Europe, there's at least, if not the present situation, the lingering situation or circumstances. My English is not so good right now. Communism. And so for a lot of folks, there's a level of distrust with people they don't know, with people who aren't their friends or family and haven't been their friends or family all their life. So new people or a new church represents something that's somewhat foreign, something unfamiliar, and therefore something that maybe we shouldn't trust or we should even be leery of. Who are these people?
What do they want?
What's their end game? Why do they want me to come to their meeting? And what's going to happen at this closed door meeting or whatever, So, yeah. I don't know if that answers your question at all. In fact, to be honest, I don't remember your question right now. But
why does the West continue to secularize? And why is it, basically? So,
he's just so excited to talk to you that he's just happy.
Yeah,
we're happy to be here.
I'm glad too. Cincinnati Reds and Bengals fan there as well. I didn't mention that. I should have mentioned that earlier. Yeah. No, I mean, I think those are things to think about. And so that being the case, what are you all doing? I mean, you're helping to try to pour into some of the young leaders that, especially the young leaders from Hungary or from the European countries. So the native young leaders that probably understand the culture better than you do and the challenges better than you do. But what are they doing or what are you doing to help turn the tide? Because I think that's something, whether you're doing ministry in Europe or North America, that you're trying to think about right now.
Yeah. One of the things that we're talking with some of our friends from the church in Germany too about this at different events in the last couple of years. But I think this is the case in America as well, is oftentimes maybe someone goes into youth, they're at the youth ministry, and then maybe they're at the young adult ministry during college. And then that next stage of life, maybe there's a program or a group at church for that. But oftentimes, sometimes the young people kind of fall off or fall through the cracks, I think is the saying. And so sometimes that is what leads that. And so I think being intentional here, we joke sometimes when we tell people there's going to be a youth camp. The youth camp could literally be anybody under the age of 35. So there's a broader inclusion, I think, for age and demographic, and to say, you don't just have to fit in this situation to be included. We want to gather in as many people as possible. So a lot of the churches that are healthy here, that are doing a good job of that, are bringing people in a variety of roles to participate or just witness an event or a Bible study or something, or to be in a role where they can develop some leadership skills as well. So so a lot of it all comes down in a lot of ways, right, to discipleship and mentoring. And so being really intentional about that and being inclusive, and also being inclusive to not just say, you don't have to be this perfect Christian before you can go out and do something. That we're all flawed. We all are on a journey, and we just want you to be on the bus, as opposed to having to have all these requirements too. I think is a helpful thing.
Yeah. I would add, I think it's here more so than in other places. It's critical just to be faithful and to show up. And what I mean by that is going back to the skepticism and the levels of distrust that a lot of folks in churches have, especially as foreigners, as guests, as non-native, speakers of their language, non-native members of their culture. If we would just be here and be here for a short time, then the question, well, what do they want? And so they didn't get what they wanted, so they left or whatever. But to be here and to be faithful and to some extent not have an agenda. I mean, we always do, right? But at the same time, to just be here, to help them get their guard down and realize we're here for you guys. We're not here to get something out of you or
be here as a learner too.
We're here to help you and to serve you. And so, there's no rush necessarily. There's no thing. We want to get to know you. We want to get to know you on a personal level and be safe people that you can trust and that you can, confide in and come to, and we can work together. So Yeah.
I think too, real fast, some of the things that when we first started this whole journey, it started off of a trip that Dan took while he was in seminary, an urban ministry class in Berlin. And some things that are helping to kind of bridge that gap, or at least help the church, sounds bad, but it's like to be appealing, at least initially, to people that would never want to cross the threshold of a church, are to have some out of the box ministries and do ministry in places that's abnormal or that isn't like inside of a church building. And so sometimes those gateway locations can really help people feel comfortable and to see what it's about without feeling like, in a safe way, I guess, like you said, is a good way to put it.
One illustration of that locally, which it's been somewhat tabled due to COVID. One of our main congregations, the church in Rakashpalata, they had a desire to reach folks in a certain neighborhood that isn't far from where their like neighborhood is, but it's a separate place. And so this year they had planned to rent out a community center one Sunday a month in that neighborhood, and bring their congregation for that one Sunday to this neighborhood community center. And then each, throughout the weeks leading up to it, they would, canvass the neighborhood and, hey, we're going to be here on this Sunday. If you want to come, just check us out. And so it's somewhat of bringing the church to the neighborhood instead of bringing the neighbors, to the church. But it's also by them being guests in this rented community center for a week, everyone was somewhat on neutral ground. And so that was one thing that they had planned to do, and they did for, I guess, 3 months maybe before things got at least temporarily halted. But so that was just one creative way they came up with to try to reach out to this neighborhood.
Yeah. Let me, since you're talking about COVID, I might as well just bring it up. What challenges has the effects of COVID brought to your ministry right now?
You're me.
Well, we mentioned earlier that a lot of what we do is regional, meaning one of the great benefits to Europe is that it's a bit smaller than some of the other regions, and there are low-cost airline carriers here. So, it was a January one time, but Dan flew from the Netherlands to Bulgaria round trip for €9. So like super duper cheap. And so that allows us as a team, a team of 6 missionary families to cover all these countries because we can travel easily. Well, enter COVID, that, the airline flights stopped. We here in Hungary, they have, especially now since September 1st, they've closed the borders. So we are not allowed to leave the country without police permission.
Well, we could leave the country. My understanding, we could leave the country,
we couldn't come back
we couldn't come back in.
Okay, yeah.
So
as long as you don't want to come home. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. It complicates it a bit. So that's been hard to know. For over the summer, it opened up a bit, so we were able to travel to Germany and to Italy to see our bosses, the Nachtigalls, and to see the church in Arco, which we do a lot and follow what they do a bit. So when you're locked down, there's like the psychological feeling trapped, but then there's also like a part of our job is to connect and do these things, and it's been really almost impossible to do that in person.
And a lot of the other individuals and churches we work with regionally, they have had similar restrictions. And so everyone, for the most part, has just been kind of hunkered down where they live. And so obviously we've had tons of Zoom meetings and messages and emails. We normally do, but we've had much more in the last 6 months, I guess. But
and we were talking with people in the, for example, some of the church in Egypt, and they weren't going to start school until October, so they were supposed to be doing virtual learning, and so trying to balance your job and teaching your kids at home and how to do all that has been a big challenge for a lot of families, and I know that's true in the States as well. So in a way, we're all in a similar boat, with different expressions maybe, but.
Locally, the 2 main congregations that we work with here in Budapest, locally, they went to all virtual worship in, I guess, March, right? And then at the end of May here, it opened up so that you could meet in gatherings as long as you didn't have X number of people or whatever.
And just to say the timelines for the spikes in COVID here was a bit ahead of the States. So when we say certain dates, you're probably like, that was the worst. Right. Why? But here things were a little different. So, and even now a bit different as well. So.
After May, both the congregations opened back up to kind of business as usual. I mean, with masks and with some people staying at home and watching online because they felt more safe that way, or because they were like, what's the word? Like their immune systems were weaker, compromised, or I don't know what the words are. As of a couple weeks ago, one of the churches went back to all virtual, at least for now, because a family was sick and they weren't sure if it was COVID. And to be honest, I haven't heard, but either way, they went back to all virtual, and the other one decided to remain as they've been doing, but everyone is required to wear a mask. And that's going to be much more, policed, and hand sanitizers and temperatures checking at the door and all that fun stuff. But I don't know, but it's a crazy ride. And as she said, the dates, we spiked here early to mid-March, and then the wave, or whatever it's called, kept going for a bit, and then it really flattened out. I think when it was spiking in America, it flattened out here, and then now we're kind of having a resurgence again. But every day is a question. Okay, what's the situation and what's the prognosis? And
anyway, kind of every church is doing something a little different here, and most are wearing masks from what I can tell, and trying to do their best to social distance, and then also projecting things out. And I know we had to my wife and I missed church last week, not this past weekend, but the weekend before, just because she was potentially around somebody who had it. And so, it's crazy here too, trying to figure all that out, even for the churches. So
that's one of the hardest things, is that, before you feel like you could make reasonable decisions, you have information, right? And now it's like not wanting to be paranoid, but also wanting to be responsible and not hurt or compromise someone else. And the not knowing what is the best decision for me has been really rough.
That was a situation for us 2 weekends ago. My wife, she works in local school, and there are basically 3 teachers in her classroom. Well, one of those teachers, her husband had tested positive. And so she found out about that. And so we went and scheduled my wife an appointment to get tested for the next day. And so she went and got tested that next day. We just assumed this lady would have it because her husband has it, right? So that's the assumption. So we assumed that Emily has been exposed. Well, all 3 of the teachers went to go get tested, and none of them, including the teacher whose husband had it, tested positive. And this teacher's kids haven't either. So somehow this guy has not spread it to his family. Or they had it earlier and he didn't have it somehow, or whatever. Right. But all that to say, over the weekend, we didn't know. Like, we didn't have any results. And so Emily and the kids had already planned to stay home. I'm like, well, I can social distance. And but thankfully, even by God's grace or sovereignty, I had scheduled one of my associates to preach already. I mean, months beforehand for that Sunday. I still planned on being there because I schedule pastors to preach even when I'm there, so I can listen and worship myself without preaching every once in a while. And but I had planned on going. Like, I woke up like in the middle of the night just going, I should probably not go to church. I don't want to scare people. And if my wife has it, I have it. Like,
exactly.
So just those decisions are so hard to make, though, right now. And everybody has a unique situation concerning some of that. And so, it's an interesting time.
For sure.
We had friends from the Netherlands who came here to Hungary on vacation in August when the borders were open and it was easy to travel. And we met up with them for a couple days, and then they left, and then we started thinking, so they've been around totally different people than we have, and maybe we should just not go to church this next week or so, because what if? Who knows? Let's play it safe. And then the following week, Sophie's school was starting back up, and there are people at her school who, over the summer at least, were all over the world. The U.S., Croatia, Germany, like, you name it, everywhere. And so then we thought, gosh, like now we're around all these people. And so we said, okay, let's kick the church thing another week or two. And so I messaged one pastor we work with, Laszlo, and I said, hey, so here's the situation. It's not like we're not dying and we're not leaving you guys, but you're not going to see us because we've been around these people and we're fine. But we just, the worst thing we would want to do is have it and take it to you guys.
Mhm.
And so I said, so just, we're not going to be there for a few more weeks. And he said, that's fine. That's a good idea. He said, yes, because if you brought COVID to our church and killed us all, you would be the worst missionaries ever. Okay.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
true though. That's good. I mean, he's got a good sense of humor, obviously.
Yeah.
He does.
Good,
Yeah.
good for that pastor. You need it right now. You need a sense of humor right now. I do feel like, especially right now, just everything going on in the world, people need a sense of humor. You
Yeah.
still need to be able to, there are a lot of serious things going on and things that are not funny. But
Right.
man, you got to be able to laugh a
Yeah.
little bit,
Lighten it up
at
a bit,
yourself and at other
Yeah.
people. And so, I don't know. I feel like very few people are doing that right now. You get on
Yeah.
social media, it's just like, goodness
Oh, man.
gracious, like everybody's angry about everything.
Yeah.
Just stay away.
But whatever. So, we talked about challenges of COVID. What are you most enjoying right now in ministry?
Mm. I think for me, we're still, things had been locked down a bit and then they've been open. So they closed the borders, but that means within the country, there's nothing has been locked down yet. So I started taking a language class since we can't travel. And normally that keeps us, we can't have certain obligations. So I've been doing an intensive Hungarian language class every weekday morning from 9 to noon here in October. And it's been just really fun as a social person and extrovert. It's just been great to learn and then to also just be around and meet some new people. So that's been really good.
Yeah. And it's been great to get a little more understanding of the language. And so I've been trying to learn a little as she's been doing her classes. I've been doing some apps and just trying to focus a little more than what I should be doing all along, but focusing a little more. And yeah, just seeing words and learning phrases, going, oh yeah, I've seen that 100 times. Now I get it now. So yeah, so that's a critical thing. And we've been trying to take advantage of the downtime, if you will, of the inability to travel by doing this. I have been, I've had some really, I don't want to say productive because that's not the right word, but positive meetings with some people that we work with regionally that it's just been encouraging that I've checked in with them and they have, they've things have been going really well in their lives and in their churches. And I don't want to say names now just because if they're listening, I don't want them to like whatever, but you know who you are. But yeah, so that's been really encouraging just to see and to hear how God is moving regionally. And yeah, so that's been good.
Well, I want to end on a positive note. So I kind of want to end on that. And with some of those encouraging words and things that you're encouraged by and growing in yourself as ministers of the gospel, how can we pray for you?
Yeah.
I think for like we were talking about before, discernment and decision making, and knowing when to say yes and when to say no, and for hopefully continued good health and protection.
Health and protection, wisdom, discernment. If I can joke about this again, I'll say it. Pray for the gift of tongues. To learn Hungarian.
Dan's gonna start the class.
That's not just a joke. Like you need that. Yeah,
really,
exactly. I'm going to
soon.
start the class she's doing now. I'm going to do in the month of November, and so just pray for us as we take concentrated efforts, if that's the right word, to learn the language and to better figure out ways to connect with the locals, be they our neighbors, random strangers, or the folks in the church. So.
Well, thank you for both of you for taking time to speak to me, and I'm sure anybody who listens to this or gets to watch this will benefit from it, and I hope you're encouraged too. We appreciate the work that you're doing. Maybe next time we do this, I'll have you share a little bit too, just about your calling. I'm
Sure.
really interested in hearing about why are people called, or how were people called um, into the mission field.
Sure.
And I think it's really encouraging for people
Yeah.
to hear. And so maybe next time we get together, we'll talk a little bit about that.
Sounds good. Thanks for having us. Thanks for the faithful prayers and support of our family and ministry. And yeah, if you want to have those follow-up conversations some other time, we're always welcome.
Yeah.
Definitely.